thank you all for coming in this morning. A couple other things coming up. We have a dance a week from Friday, our second dance of the year. Always a good opportunity for the boys to do some stuff together. Sometimes, a lot of times I notice someone will come and pick up 4 or 5 of the boys for a sleepover afterwards. It's a nice opportunity to do something like that as well. We also have coming up Saturday, February 8th, we will do a ski trip, 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. It's a one-day trip to Mount Sunapee. We've done it for about 4 or 5 years in a row now. And we leave early in the morning on the Saturday, take the bus up, ski for the day, come back. I leave up there around 4:15, 4:30, get back here around 6:30 or sometime around then. I'll go on that. Mr. Brooks, the high school vice president for student affairs, will go. We have a couple other teachers going to chaperone as well. We will have, just trying to get all the information from Sunapee on rates and things like that. So we'll have the pricing out in this week's update. We hope to get that out, and the permission slips. The other thing, the next parent coffee for 8th grade parents will be Friday, February 28th. Ms. Smith, who's the academic vice principal of the high school, will come and talk about the high school academic program. We do that at the end of February because it's just about the time that the high school is having their accepted students reception for students who are coming in new to the 9th grade next year. And so sometimes you might have neighbors whose sons are applying to 9th and they're getting information. So we just think it's a good time to give you all information. The boys will do their course selection right around the beginning of April. But we'll give you a sort of overview of that course selection process and the whole high school academic program. So today, we're talking, and this is my favorite parent coffee. We've done this one every year for the 8th grade parents. We really talk about supporting and dealing with boys as they move into adolescence. And we have, you notice we've got a little bit different setup today with tables. And the idea, in the fall we had a parent coffee on the HSBT and Merit Scholarships. And really that was more of an information dump from me to all of you. Really what we'd like to see today is, hopefully, and Ms. Domitz will take over for that part, is a bit of discussion. I've got some experience. Ms. Domitz has a lot of experience working with boys this age. Both have read a bunch of books, but really it's the parent experience that we have in the room that is probably the most valuable resource that we have here today. So we'll want to get a chance just to discuss it, sometimes just to share things and say, yep, I'm seeing that at home as well. Oh, I haven't seen that one yet, and then maybe next week you will. So that's what we're trying to do today is get that opportunity. So I'm going to start off just a couple things. We sent out a chapter of this book, Masterminds and Wingmen, which, and again, some of you probably had a chance to read it, some of you didn't. This book now, I think came out about 5-6 years ago. I think it's my favorite book right now on sort of adolescent boys, and I like the way she tells the story. There's a lot of anecdotes from some of the boys she works with. Again, if you're looking for a resource, I recommend this one. Again, we did send out one chapter with the invite. Yeah, feel free to read the chapter if you think it's great. Buy the book. I don't get any royalties or anything from it, so I'm not doing that. A couple other books I like. My favorite title, Get Out of My Life, but First Could You Drive Me and Cheryl to the Mall? This is also, it's a fun one. Both boys and girls going through adolescence. It's well done. A little more sort of one of the seminal works by Michael Thompson and Dan Kinlan, Raising Cain. Michael Thompson's, many of you probably have heard of him, he's a very famous sort of psychologist. He speaks, I've seen him, he's spoken here a couple of times. He's been at the school I was at down in Virginia. Sometimes every time he gets a new book, he goes on the circuit again. But he's very well, he does a lot of work in independent schools. Again, it's well done, good book. He's got another one that came out later sorry, this is not, sorry, not him, it's just a quote on the front page. But this is another one by Peg Tyre. It's called The Trouble with Boys. Surprise report card on our sons, their problems at school, what parents and educators must do. The other one I have, and someone has borrowed my copy, so I can't show it to you. It's a very short, very thin book, and it's called Learning How to Kiss a Frog. And it's in frogs being adolescents. It's written by a teacher, I think, from the Fenn School back about 25 years ago. Some of these books are a little bit outdated because they're written really before the boys were totally into the internet and social media and things like that. Masterminds and Wingmen, written recently enough that she's got some information on that. I'm sure there's going to have to be another book coming out soon because, again, things continue to change in certain ways. But even, Learning How to Kiss a Frog, written 25, 26 years ago, well before anyone was really using the internet, is still very right on for sort of understanding the age. It's short, it's very easy to read. I think somewhere we probably listed it. I hope we gave you a sheet of resources. Great. So anyway, just some information for you all. And again, feel free to suggest books that you've read that you think are great for this topic. Little context. 8th graders, January of 8th grade, and they are definitely moving into adolescence. Some are moving into adolescence much more quickly than others, but they're all somewhere in that either entering adolescence, kind of looking at adolescence, or well into it at this point in time. And the first thing I want to say when dealing with adolescence, I think at school, we tend to see, generally speaking, their better sides. I think it's definitely harder at home. And I have this great Mark Twain quote. Mark Twain said, "When I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant, I could hardly stand to have the old man around. But when I got to be 21, I was astonished by how much he had learned in 7 years." And I think this is pretty indicative of where a 14-year-old is, 150 years or so after Mark Twain made this quote. One of my favorite stories is the first year of Arupe guidance council at the time. Mr. Devlin and I were talking to a boy. This sort of extreme case. He had run away from home. He'd been away for a couple of days. He was extremely angry. And it took us, an hour to sort of keep peeling off the layers to get down to it. And basically, he was very, very angry with his mother. He kept telling her, she just did the worst thing. And when we finally uncovered it all, she had grounded him. She had grounded him because he'd been extremely rude to her. And he told us what he'd done and said to her. And Mr. Devlin and I looked at each other and were like, okay, hey, if you'd said that at school, what would we have done? He'd been like, I'd be in big trouble. But for him, that was fine at school to be in big trouble. But at home, he just couldn't believe his mother had done that. And I think that does represent that sort of dichotomy that, hey, they are willing to deal with certain things at school, but not always at home. And I think they can be more difficult at home. I see this every day. I have 3 adolescents now at home, one heading that way. And some of the things that my oldest son, what he does at home, I'm very thankful he doesn't seem to do in school every day. So yeah, we have that. Now, the one advantage you all have compared to school is you probably have somewhere between 1 and maybe 3 or 4 adolescents at home. We have 1,500 of them around here. So it does sort of, although they might be somewhat easier, we have a lot more of them to deal with on a daily basis. As we move further into 8th grade, one of the fun things we see is that the boys are starting to feel more mature. And they're confident, and that confidence is precarious, but they are more confident most of the time. Many of them are getting bigger. Some not yet, but many of them are getting bigger, and with that size comes a new type of confidence, even if they can't always control their giant bodies. One of the fun things is they're starting to think abstractly. And again, some guys a little more than others, and they're starting to be able to just wrestle with concepts that they never thought they could wrestle with before. And they're starting to understand things. They certainly think that they know a lot. And I have to tell you, having a senior, this does not stop. This accelerates over the next 4 years. I don't know when it will stop, but he certainly knows a lot more than I do these days. And they want more independence. And to some extent, they're getting some more independence at school. And some of this is purposeful on our part. But a lot of it's just not, they act more maturely. We recognize that. We give them a little more responsibility. They get a little more responsibility, and sometimes they handle that well. They act a little more maturely. It just sort of goes back and forth like that. Some of the things you start to see is they're asked to do, and they're able to do more sophisticated writing. And there's a continuum on that. They're not. It's more sophisticated. For some, it's very sophisticated. For some, we're getting there. More discussion and reflection in classes and advisory. The conversations you have in an 8th grade advisory are different than the conversations we have in a 7th grade advisory. Also, you start to see longer term projects, more independent work, as we see that they can handle that and they're becoming more independent learners. There's going to be bumps in the road. This is not a straight line trajectory. There's ups and downs, bumps along the way. Sometimes it's individual, sometimes the whole grade seems to have a bump. I've taught every grade from 5th to 12th. I would say my favorite time in that 5th to 12th grade period is the spring of 8th grade. I loved teaching 8th graders in the spring. And some people are pulling their hair out with them, but I love that period. Again, they're just hitting that time when they can think about things they've never been able to think about before. They can be fun. Part of it is knowing you have to just keep the foot on the gas pedal and sort of keep them moving forward. But there's a lot one can do with them at that time period. It's a time when we need to think as a school ways to give them more leadership opportunities. And it's hard to find those, but we do. Some of the guys we've seen this year who've been involved in things like the VLSU or the CGSO have done a great job rising to the occasion and getting up on stage and doing some presentations at morning meetings. And that's nice to see. And we need to find other opportunities for them to take that leadership role. So we're working on it. Ironically, sometimes we see that they're treated a little more, they're given a little more independence, they're treated sort of as older in the spring of 8th grade than in the fall of 9th grade. Because when they make that transition to 9th grade, they are the youngest. And compared to a senior, they are very young. So it is sort of, they do have to make that shift to, okay, we were the top of the heap, and now all of a sudden we're the bottom. But we get a lot of positives in working with boys at this age in school. And again, there's some challenges along the way. We do get a lot of positives. I think home can be more challenging, and Wiseman has a great quote. She says, "Parenting boys isn't fair. When your son is upset or angry, it can feel like you're given one chance with very limited information to say the right thing. If you don't get it right, his expression says, 'This is why I never tell you anything, and I will never tell you anything again.'" And I think that, again, sums up the challenges we have as parents with this. Two common difficulties at this age. One is, and I can't remember which of the books, I think it's the Get Out of My Life book, describes it as the allergy to parents. That, this is a time that boys start to disappear. It's one of the books that talks about them. They go into the bedroom, shut the door, and they come out 4 years later. I'm finding that's my 10th grade daughter. That's her. So it doesn't always stick with the gender lines they describe in these books. But they want privacy. They don't want you to know what's going on in their lives. And again, some of them do. Some of them will always want you to know what's going on in their lives. I say that generally, it's not going to describe every single one of the boys. But underneath, they also have these feelings of wanting to connect to you, wanting your approval, wanting all that. And then they also have these feelings that are disgusted with those feelings. And it's balancing all that as you move along. So, Wiseman describes 4 reasons that we want to talk with our sons. Genuine curiosity. We want them to pay attention, or we need them to do something. We're worried, and we want them to talk to us. And we believe that they're about to do something stupid, wrong, or dangerous, or have just done something. And that brings up the second quality. So one quality being the sort of allergy of the parents, and the other quality is risky behaviors. So just at that time when you have to let go, it's also the time when we most need to be their logical thinking. And because they don't have it. And what is that? I think books describe, the frontal cortex, sort of ability to sort of reason things out and make, not make dumb mistakes. In young men, it supposedly doesn't develop until about age 25. I can't speak for all the men in the room, but some would say it might be more like 35. Fortunately, I was more cautious by nature, but I don't think the reasoning developed until well into my 30s. So, but this is the type teenagers, and there's lots of studies out there, into the teenage brain, but this sort of craving risk. And, some of the things we start to see at this age for risky behaviors, smoking, vaping. And a year ago, vaping didn't even seem that risky. Now it's more identified as being risky, which just means it's going to increase students wanting to do it. Sex, alcohol, drugs, shoplifting is a sort of low-level risky behavior that some of them experiment with, stealing things. Then there's the physically stupid things that teenagers get into, jumping off of bridges, skateboarding down a set of stairs. This is my big worry on the ski trip, of course, and we talk about this quite a few times before we go on the ski trip. Just because your friend can go over the jump doesn't mean you who barely ski can go over the jump as well. And in a few years, and hold off on this as long as you can, but they'll be driving and then they do stupid things with vehicles. I don't know how many of you remember the early 80s when Honda first came out with the Civic. The Civic was a very, very small car. It wasn't the sedan it is now. Tiny little car. My older brother, a couple years ahead of me in high school, we had a little Honda Civic. And of course he came home and told me one day, do you realize you can get the Honda Civic up to 108 miles an hour? Which again, nobody should do, but that's what teenagers tend to do with these things. So again, risky behavior. I think one of the scariest things with risky behaviors is, if you could talk to a boy today, and he will tell you, I would never try alcohol. And he can be absolutely 100% certain, mean it to the core of his being. And a week later, he's drinking. Right? And because there's a switch that flips sometimes. And so you never sort of relax about things because they go through these changes in fits and starts. And again, so funny moments with parents when boys do really stupid things. The first thing we all want to say is, "What were you thinking?" And the reality was, if they had been thinking, they probably would not have done this. And they're not thinking. So at a time when they don't necessarily want to talk with us, we've got to find ways to keep the communication open so that we can be, as best we can, their brain. Doing the thinking, getting them to think through things before we go and take them places, before they go and have an opportunity. A lot of times, when we're bringing guys somewhere, I try to go through, at least a handful of the really stupid things that they might come up with when we go to that place, so that they don't do it. Because I think oftentimes if they do think through it ahead of time, they won't end up doing it. But in the moment, if they've never thought about it prior, it might seem like a great idea. So I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Domitz to talk about suggestions about how do we keep them talking? How do we open those lines of communication? And this is her values.
Hi, good morning. I would say similar to Bob and mine, maybe a little bit earlier. This is from now until the end of the year is like my favorite time. I cycle through the boys, and 8th grade is just who I love them. I think they're just so funny and interesting, and they want to talk to me, which is fun for me, even though they don't want to talk to you. As I kind of go through these, I like to share anecdotes because I think a lot of it is what you see at home or what you don't see. It's important for you to know what we see here. And I had a group of, I was just thinking, I've got a couple groups right now that are tagging along constantly. So there's like a morning group that's in my office. The minute I walk in, they're by my door. The lunch group I've been playing Monopoly with. And then we've got like an after school group, and this morning group was in my office. They were talking about being middle schoolers and how cool they were. And I said to them, like, you don't want to peak in middle school. And they're like, oh, yeah. And then it goes like quiet for a minute. One of them goes, what does it mean to peak? So they're still learning. They don't quite know. They agree, but they don't know. But this is a time where I like them, and I know that you see a lot of the tough sides. They don't want to talk anymore. They don't seem like they care about you in maybe the same way, right? They're not as affectionate. I'll get a lot of moms saying, I used to tuck him in, or he would want me to come say goodnight to him a year ago, and now this year there's nothing. Get out of my room, or just stomps up and doesn't do anything. And they still have that compassion and that empathy. You know, I had a student who I've worked really closely with for a year and a half, and last week, as Mr. Hamlet was mentioning, we had a really rough, kids were just being crazy, and I was really busy running around. He came in at the end of the day, and I was probably gonna, get out of my office and say, how's my favorite teacher doing? And I just wanted to cry. It's like, well, I'm not a teacher, but otherwise, I'm doing good, and I'm glad that you care. So they're still in there, those boys that you remember. But a little bit about what I want to talk about, have you guys talk about, and then I'll come back, is going into why they don't want to talk to you. So some of the reasons, biologically, and just thinking about them practically, that your sons aren't talking to you as much anymore, especially about the issues that you wish that they would. So the struggles with friendships, the struggles with girls or boys, the struggles with teachers, the struggles with their self-confidence, so being cut from something, failing a test they thought they knew. All these different things that they're not talking to you about anymore. So what are some of the reasons that we see? What do I talk to the boys about the reasons? What do they talk about, in the books about why they're not doing it? I would say that a big one of the biggest ones is that they think that you won't help, that you will make it worse. And I'm sure you've heard that. Don't say anything to my teacher, you'll make it worse. Don't call that mom, you will make it worse. Please don't do that. There's this big fear that they want to be able to fix it themselves now. So they're trying to get this independence. And they think that if you step in and do it, you're going to do it the wrong way and make it worse for them. And that feels scarier than living in the bad situation that they don't like. I try really hard to work with the boys in that setting and to present them with a bunch of different scenarios. Like, okay, well, we could do nothing. Or we could do everything. We could call in all the troops. Or we could look at this entire scale of options. And let's pick which one we want to try. And I think that's a big part of it, right? They don't want you to take away their independence. And this is a big note I say to myself. They don't want you to take away their independence, even though they don't have any independence. They are 13 and 14-year-old boys. They can't drive, they can't vote, they can't pay for anything on their own. So they don't actually have independence, but this is the first time in their lives that they feel like they do. And it's finding that balance of not undermining it, not making them feel like they're undermined in that independence, but also helping guide them. I say a lot to parents and to boys, and I think I've probably said it to 50% of you, so I apologize for using the same anecdote constantly, or analogy, but that it's like bowling, and we got to keep the bumpers up without them knowing that they're still in the bumper lanes of bowling, right? You take them all down, they are going to fall off the lane. But if you tell them, I'm keeping everything up so that you don't make mistakes, they're immediately going to buck against that. They don't like that idea, right? That you're controlling what they're doing. And they don't like it from me either. It's not just parents. So it's helping them feel like they're a little bit more in control. A big one, I think, is that they don't want you to get angry with them or their friends. So they don't want to tell you things because of that. And I would say you're probably noticing, and I give my parent coffees messed up, so I don't know if we talk so much about friendship, but that most of their conflict right now is with their friends, not with guys that they don't know at all. It's a lot of it is they chirp at each other, they say mean things to each other. Those boys now, they've been more vulnerable with them, so they know the things that are stressing them out or their weaknesses. And they don't want you to get mad at their friends that they're going to invite over in a week again, that they still care. They don't want you to get mad at them for what they said back to their friends. I can think of a group of boys that I had, this is like 2 years ago, so they came into my office they wanted to talk about a friend they were concerned about. Oh, he's on our travel hockey team. So he doesn't go here, he's on our travel hockey team, we just want to talk about it. Okay, come on in. Yeah, he's on our travel hockey team. But also, like, we saw him in religion this morning. So that's interesting. Seems like he goes here. No. I mean, did we say religion? I mean, Snapchat. No, I think you know him. You don't want me to know who it is. So it's trying to help them. Okay, let me give you ideas of how to help this hypothetical person on a hockey team who also goes to your religion class. So they don't want you to get mad at them or their friends, right? They are, unfortunately, for better or for worse, this is when they become very egocentric, right? You become more and more hyper-focused on yourself at this age than you ever have been before. And that's some of what you're seeing, and some of what can be tough, is that they're not caring about their little siblings, or they're wanting to see their grandparents. Other parents say, he used to always go on Saturday to go see his grandma, and now he screams about it. Why are you making me go? They're more focused on themselves, and that's part of adolescent development, but also makes it tough to deal with them. I would say another big one is that they don't want to get embarrassed. So that could be in multiple ways, right? They don't want to get embarrassed in front of you, showing those vulnerabilities, potentially acknowledging that they didn't know what to do in that situation and they might have messed up. They also don't want to get embarrassed to their peers. So I'll have kids all the time like, why was my mom just here? I'm interested in that. And they know they're maybe failing math. So it's pretty easy to put together why their mom might be here, but they don't want to acknowledge that in the big picture. A big thing that I think is important for you to know is that they are still listening to you. So that same kid who might say, why was my mom here, and not want to talk about math. If I call them in and say, like, okay, I know math isn't going well, let's talk about it. What are any ideas that you think of that might help? Almost every time they're going to list off every idea that you told them. But they're not going to say, my mom or my dad told me this. They're going to suggest these ideas for themselves. We're going to pick one of them and do it. Then I'm going to get on the phone with you and you're going to say, that is exactly what I told him yesterday morning, and that he told me was a bad idea, and acted like he didn't listen and put his headphones in. And they are listening. It's just that balance of the independence and helping them, right? So I would say a lot of that is the reasons why they don't want to talk, which makes it fun. There's the little things that don't want to get punished. I'm sure you've had fights about technology. They don't want to lose their time on their Xbox or their iPad, especially more and more that's how they communicate with their friends, so that makes them feel like they're cut off. But I think a lot of it, even with technology, and I think to the point of the book, sometimes feeling outdated without that part, is that the biological component of adolescent development doesn't change. They are becoming more and more focused on themselves, and they are becoming riskier, wanting to figure things out for themselves, develop this independence. So from part of the reason why they don't want to talk to you to what can you do? So I'm going to talk about that, then let you guys talk about both of those options. So things that you're seeing at home, them not talking to you, what's worked well, and then I will come back and talk a little bit about just maybe some gentle warning signs or things that I think are important for you to know for when you might want to push more. But before that, just into what are things that we can do? What are good ways to get your son to talk to you, especially if he's become quieter and quieter or stompier. I always tell them they're stompier and stompier. I would say my top tip ever, it's so easy, is like a long car ride. I think that car rides are when they talk to you. We find quite literally that not looking at them. So sometimes somebody comes down to my office and they'll say like, I want to talk to you. But we sit there, I ask them questions, he get nothing. You know, silence isn't really doing much. So I'm like, if it's okay with you, why don't you work on this puzzle? I'm going to do some work. So I physically turn my back to them. I'm doing some emails, they're playing with a puzzle, and you give it a little bit of time, and all of a sudden they're like, you know, they're willing to open up about what's happening. That physical eye connection is actually something that they are scared of right now. So they're more willing to be vulnerable in things like a car ride. You're in the front of the car driving, they're in the back, and they're just going to start eventually opening up and chattering more. Doing activities, so chores, cleaning. If you need to clean for the weekend and your son hasn't talked to you for a long time, and usually you put him in the kitchen or in the bathroom and you do the kitchen, pick a room together so that while you're doing that mundane task, they might start to talk. Take away their AirPods. AirPods are getting in the way of all of this. Sometimes I turn back around and they have their AirPods in, and I'm like, oh, foiled. So take those out when you're doing chores or in the car. I think mundane tasks help. I think it's so easy to want to say this, and I do it too. I'll say to the boys, I really need to talk to you, come by. And that immediately puts a little bit of like right? They get a little bit scared. So it's the same thing, right? You might do at home where you say, God, well, you just haven't talked in a while. Can we just sit down and all talk as a family after dinner? And you cut by 50% what they were going to tell you, right? Just saying that makes them nervous. What do you want to talk about? What are you scared of? What do you think I did? Anything like that. So I would stress, and it's with myself too, to try to avoid saying things like that. Just naturally do activities together. The other one I would say is, and I always laugh about this, is sharing TV shows. So there's a TV show that they like or a game that they're playing on Xbox and they're willing to let you into the room, or they're watching a show that they like. Sit down and engage them on that. Oh, this show's funny, sit with them for a while, talk to them about it. The commercials are good unless you're watching things on Netflix now. But don't say, Ms. Domas told me I should get involved in the TV shows that you like. Because then again, it just immediately, makes them be like, oh, you're just doing this because you think it's going to do this. You don't really care. You just want me to tell you what's going on. So trying to join into some of their hobbies. I know right now their hobbies are the worst things to want to be involved in. They're not doing the most interesting things. But this is the time to try to get interested and find those times to connect. Using silence, being open-ended, I think is good. So not asking yes or no questions like, is class really hard these days? So you say yep or no, but what has been hard in algebra recently, right? That gets you an answer that explains itself more. So I think things like that can work. Setting up the situations is always harder than it sounds, so I would just try to naturally be observant to when your son is being chattier. And maybe you have one who hates talking in cars, but it's something else. It's that when you pick up dinner and they have to do the dishes, put the dishes away, that they just start chatting. Maybe they're chatting to their sibling, and you can honestly eavesdrop and listen to what they're saying, right? That might be a place where they're feeling more able to chat. So those are some of the things that I think work really well, and some of the reasons why I think they're not talking to you so much. I would love it now if, and I don't know if Mr. Yovlet, if you have anything to add to that, if you want to talk to each other for a minute about what's been tough recently, what they are, shouting down the halls, or when they've been more closed up, or things that are working when you're getting them to talk to you, issues that they've been willing to share.
I think the hardest time for adolescents is sort of 8th grade through about 10th grade. The skills take a while to develop. Those social skills and the finessing of those social skills take time to develop. They learn through experience, but as they experience comes with making mistakes, and oftentimes those mistakes hurt each other. By the time, it's funny, when I taught sophomores, first semester sophomores drive everyone crazy. Second semester sophomores sort of are getting it together. And there's a real change. You'll see it if you're teaching sophomores, the difference between this week and next week, after they get through exams and they start to go there and they start to have group guidance again. They have one semester each year, they have group guidance as sophomores, and the guidance counselors start to talk about college process, and then all of a sudden the sophomores start to pull it together a bit. I do think 8th, 9th, and 10th grade are some of the most difficult years, just trying to work with each other and go through adolescence. They're all going through at different rates and stuff like that, and that makes it difficult. And then, of course, starting with junior year to about college, that's probably the most dangerous years in a boy's life. So you have all these great things to look forward to over the next decade. But again, and part of this is working together to do that. I do want to leave you one quote just because it's my favorite one from the book. The first thing my mother says to me every day after school is, tell me 5 things that happened at school today. 5. She exhausts me. And I've read that quote, and I've read the book a number of times, I've read all her suggestions, and I still ask stupid questions like that of my children. How was school today? That's not what I'm supposed to ask. I'm just asking more open-ended ones, these better questions. So again, it's a process, and again, anytime you can have these conversations, I think I got I've heard Tracy do this before, there are other guys who got to do this before, and yet I still remember, oh yeah, I keep forgetting to do that. So again, it's a process as parents, it's not easy, but let's keep working together. They're great kids, so we'll get there. Thank you.